Name is Sydney Aburis. My wife Sheila Aburis. Hyphen Busiri Pamboka.
The hyphen Aburi comes after the hyphen, but it's okay.
Take it. We married for 1.5 years. Dated for 7 years. Is it? Yeah. Dated for 7 years. So been together for 8.5 years. It's a huge chunk of
My youth.
yeah. Oh, you feel?
Yeah.
Go ahead. Does she need to introduce herself and we're good with that? She can.
I'm curious to know, like, 8.5. That's a long time.
It's a
Yeah,
really
it
long
is.
time. That's my whole 20s.
It is.
So you guys met when you were what, 21 or 22?
I was actually 21.
I was 24.
You turned 25 that year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, how did you guys meet?
I'll let you take this up.
I'm about to give the long version, so I'd rather you do the short version of the story than
Okay.
I do the real one. Yeah.
So I sing with a couple of really good friends of mine called Humble, and so we were on this one. We met in church. Feels like this is a typical
Okay.
Christian
Yeah.
response, but yeah. So we met in church. Usually, I also at the time I think I just not maybe I was like 6 months out of a relationship, give or take. I just come out like 5 or 6 months, and it was not my intention at all to get into like another relationship. I was open to it, but that was not my intention. So this one Saturday morning we passed by church. I think we were going to sing somewhere in Karen, in Oasis Church or something. So we passed by church and I saw you, and I was like, oh, she's really pretty. Like, but that was it. I did not have any. I didn't have any intentions of like. I was a bit nervous, I guess. I was shy, and also, like I said, I was like 6 months out of a relationship, and I was like, I don't know if I'm ready yet. So I was like, oh, but she's really pretty, and like she caught my eye immediately. So anyway, we leave, go to sing wherever we were singing. We come back in the evening, pass by church again, and Sheila is still there. So I go, we're having a chat with one of my friends called Isaac. Shout out to Isaac Abantu, because he always credits. He says he's the reason me and Sheila got married, but yeah. Anyway, so having a conversation with him, and Isaac is like, oh yeah, by the way, yeah, you need to meet more people, you need to meet. And I was like, oh, by the way, who's that girl over there? And Isaac's like, oh, Sheila Kwamboka, in fact, come, I can introduce you. So he pulls me over, takes me to where Sheila was. A couple of other people were there, and then like I said, I was quite nervous. So I sort of was just jumping on other people's conversations, just hoping to strike a conversation with her. So talked for a few minutes. There was friend Billy Black was also there, and so it was actually Billy's idea, because Billy was like, you have to get her number. So Billy used to have some XTG, you know that XTG huge phone. So Billy's idea, which worked again, shout out to Billy, he asked Sheila to take a selfie of all of us on that day. So Sheila takes a selfie with her phone, and then Billy tells Sheila, I really want that selfie, could you send it to Sydney's phone? So gives so gives Sheila my number, and then Sheila sends me the photo the next day, and then of course from there I initiated conversation. So it so happened that week she was passing by where on Ngong Road. I used to work on Ngong Road, And so I was like, hey, do you want to meet for pizza? I think the Pizza Inn that's on Ngong Road, yeah. But then I didn't want that to be the first date. Like,
Guys, Pizza Inn was the first
so
date.
I had, so my you know when you have a brilliant idea, but then it doesn't pan out or work out the way you hoped. So my idea was, I'm gonna tell her, but then this is not the first date. I just want 10 dates. My idea was like, I want 10 dates with you, and then that was the first date, whether I like it or not. But yeah, that was the first of very many dates. So I guess that's how we met.
Okay. So the long version of this story. Manifestation works. I did not manifest, but so I met Sydney. I'd say I met him twice. I met him online and I met him offline. So meeting him online was, I was randomly scrolling on Instagram some random day. Then I saw some poetry that was done. I don't know if it was my explore page or someone had reposted, I'm not sure. But I remember reading and I was just thinking, oh, this is such beautiful writing. Don't gloat. This is so brilliant.
Again,
This
in
is
case you didn't get the previous one, you can use this.
So I decided to, as usual, stalk the writer. So I go into I check the profile, I scroll. So I see this face. I had never seen him before. I keep scrolling, then I see the brother. I'm like, oh, I've met this one. Okay. Keep scrolling, I see Humbled. I'm surprised. And then I saw a girl on the page. I made a mental note. I was like, oh, must be nice. She's the recipient of this beautiful writing. Must be really nice. And yeah, I think I stalked him, and that was that. So I forgot and I moved on. And then months later, I think like 4 months later, getting ready to go to church. So I'm giving a backstory because this is important. I was getting ready to go to church, and my parents were always early to church. Like they were in church by 8 or 8:30 latest. And I remember I was making them late that day. Natural hair girls, you really understand the struggles. I was having a really bad hair day. So they left and I was stuck trying to fix my hair. I was so frustrated because I was going for school ministry on that day and we needed to be in church by 9. So I was running extremely late. And I think a few tears were shed. I was so frustrated about how my Sabbath morning was going. So I literally grabbed whatever I could find, put pins in my hair, and I was just like, this has to do, and I went to church. The one day you go to church, feeling however you're feeling, looking however you're looking, is when the whole world was in church. I'm telling you, that day, so we have a basketball court outside the church. That's when everyone, all the potential husbands were just roaming around. So I was going for school ministry. So I remember seeing Humboldt from afar. Of course, I went to say hi. Sydney was there. Then, of course, when I saw him, I just remembered. I was like, oh, this is the writer. Then that was it. I went for school ministry and came back in the afternoon. And as Sydney has said, I ran into them again. And the wingman did a very good job. Gabantu, Billy Black. It was a trap for me to send him that photo. And I remember that time I was talking to someone else. So we were in the talking stage and I knew it was going to materialize into a relationship. So I almost stopped myself from sending this photo because I was like, am I ready to open up a discussion that I might not enjoy? And previously I had talked to several guys who I didn't particularly enjoy interacting with. So I was just like, what if I send this photo and this is one of the other guys who I don't enjoy talking to? But at the time, the talking stage I was in was getting very serious. So it also felt like, am I cheating? Is it? Yeah, but he had not asked me out. So I remember after sending the photo, he texted me and I think I took 2 days to respond. intentionally. I took 2 days to respond, and I was just asking myself, what if I talk to this person and I really don't enjoy? Because I don't like having to tell someone I don't think this can work out. I really don't like it. So I responded after 2 days, and I think the rest is history. He was so interesting. He was very interesting to text. He was matching my wit. He was matching my wit, and he actually overtook the guy the guy that was in the talking stage. So yeah, that's pretty much how we met. We met in church, but I met him online. Yeah. So previously, I'd get bored after 7 months. Not that I've dated many people, but for the short relationship, the few relationships that I had experienced, I noticed that by the time I'd get to month 7, I'd get bored, or month 8, the relationship would end. So for most of them, most relationships didn't even get to a year. But for Sydney, it was different because I think communication was key. So just as we started dating, I let him know. I told him, listen, 7 months for me is like, I have bad luck with 7. Once 7 months draws close, I know the relationship is about to end. So I think you're the one who told me about the slump phase. So I think he told me for every relationship there's a slump phase, but the slump phase doesn't mean that you hate each other, you dislike each other. It just means that you need to put in more work during your slump phase. And he told me, never be scared of telling me when you feel like we've hit a slump. So as we started our first year, I noticed at some point that we were almost hitting a slump, and I told him about it. And both of us had to take a step back and ask ourselves, okay, what are we doing? What are we not doing? And during that time, I feel like you carried a relationship, because you'd give more than I was able to give at that point. And it really worked, because by the time I was getting to this relationship, I think I was very clear about what I wanted, and everything aligned. So I just knew that it felt natural to put in the work. So when we hit a slump, we'd discuss. I'd tell him, this is how I'm feeling, or this is a bit dicey, but you know how sometimes, okay, I don't know if you know how, but you know how sometimes
You think that Nash is not in that relationship?
No, I don't know if he's experienced this. Okay. But you know how sometimes you feel like you like the attention you're getting from elsewhere? We also had to discuss that. So like, if I'm at work and I notice that this other person is giving me attention and I like it, I'd discuss it with Sydney and tell him, I'm getting attention elsewhere and I like it. And we try and figure out, okay, what's lacking in our relationship at this point? What is there, like an emotional, are we emotionally disconnecting? What part am I not pouring into? And I'd do the same for him. So we'd have very weird discussions that maybe other people might not always have in their relationships. I think that helped.
Yeah, like, this is gonna be a weird take, but in my, I always say, my previous relationship, I was the one who was on the wrong. Like, I always say that she knew how to love. I didn't know what love was, to be honest. But weirdly enough, she knew. She was younger than me also, but she knew. She figured it out. So when I got out of that relationship and I was getting into a new relationship, it's the first time I had seen involved God in the decision. And that day, actually, on the basketball court, I literally prayed. Like, I stood before going to talk to Sheila. Like, I literally remember, like, I literally prayed and was like, God, my prayer is one. If this relationship is not supposed to end in marriage, please do every single thing for it not to work. I was please, like, let me, whatever I say, whatever words I use, may I just find problems, like, in that was
I
actually
don't
my
want
prayer.
peace.
No,
I want
that was
problems.
that was legit my prayer. And I remember my words to God were, because God, if she says yes, me, I'm Nenda now. Like, I was like, that's it. Like, so please just do everything that you can, because I'll take that as a sign. So, and also by that time, I have to credit a lot to everyone else in, like, Humboldt, AD, Billy, all those people who were around at that time. And Nash is also part of Humboldt, so he knows the type of conversations that happen in that setting. Weirdly enough, at that age, everyone was busy talking about what love should be. Amongst the things we would talk about, the things we were talking about is what love should be as a principle. That love is a principle and not a feeling. So we kept that was something we talked about frequently, and it somehow just got ingrained in us. So when I got into the relationship, I got in with the understanding that, oh man, like, I was on the wrong in my previous relationship. I actually thought that when I went through the slump, I was like, yeah, this thing doesn't work for me, doesn't work. But I was like, now I know that wasn't love or whatever, that was on my part. And so going in, I think I had a more realistic expectation of what a relationship ought to be. And weirdly enough, it provided the right foundation, but you also, 8 years later, you still learn new relationships, and marriage exposes you to you. That's what I think. Like, if you think you're selfless, you think you're all those things, like, wait till you get married. Like, you're not as selfless as you think you are, you know. So it demands a lot out of you. So you still learn new things every day.
I think it does. And I think marriage, I don't want to call it character development, but it refines, with a short experience, I feel like it refines your character, where, like you said, it exposes you to you. So you constantly feel like you need to put in the work, even for yourself. Like, the many times I've caught myself maybe saying, I'm not even going to do this for him. Maybe I'm angry and I'm trying to show him that I'm angry. Then I ask, okay, so who's this serving? Like, so I constantly have to stop myself from being selfish, even when the situation is very difficult. Even before I speak, I have to ask myself, is this edifying? Is this going to just tear the other person down? So I think it really refines your character. There are parts of yourself that you actually have to face, and sometimes it even happens maybe even after an argument, and you're like, what did I just do? What did I just say? And you know that it's not shameful, but you know how it feels when you have to just go back and say, I'm sorry, and have the discussion. But I think for me, marriage has taught me to be kinder and to extend more grace, because I think Sydney is very graceful. Teamwork, of course, there's a lot of teamwork that goes on. I feel like it's built my communication, and there are skills that I've learned that I also apply outside of marriage. So even I've extended it to my friends, family, even at work. Like, even before I say something, I stop myself and I ask, is this edifying? I ask myself, is this an emotional situation? Like, is rationale required? Like, there are so many skills that I'd say I've learnt out of this union that I can still apply outside of the marriage setting. So I don't know if it's the same for you.
Okay. I think marriage is the most wholesome institution ever, and this is just me not even talking as a Christian. It's just, I think as an idea, it definitely had to be God's idea. I don't see how this could be man's idea. Like, it's such a, because it's it's the most beautiful, like, you sometimes you don't even realize the beauty until, like, let's say someone travels for like 3 days, then you're like, this house is too big. Like,
I'm going for a day.
yeah, I'm like, I remember after like our honeymoon, the first day that Sheila was going back to work, because I work remotely from home, so she was going to the office. The moment she left the door, you know, I tend to think that I'm a very relatively independent person. Like, firstborn, we lost our parents when we were young, so I had to sort of take responsibility, I'd say, at a very young age. So I tend to think I'm relatively independent. So when after the honeymoon, like, she goes to work that one day, I was like, what? Like, I even had to call her, like, hey, please just leave work mapema leo if you can. Like, I that was a new, so marriage is amazing. And the discomfort of marriage is because marriage requires you to sort of do things that are not your second nature. Like, we're really selfish, to be honest, as human beings. Like, we're really selfish. You can't have any ounce of selfishness in marriage. You have to be selfless. It's God, then your partner, then you. Like, that's a order of priority. But more often than not, we actually most times even put ourselves above God, in some of the actions that we do. So it's, that discomfort is what you can only, like, I believe that there are certain things that I'm yet to see in my, like, as I grow older, that there are certain qualities that I think you learn best when you're married. Okay.
It's funny you say that, because just before our relationship, I'd come out of a relationship, I'd say, like, a year before, and one of the things I did was I wrote down a list, a pros and cons list. Then I wrote down my values, what I want, what I don't want. Like, I really went through the whole process of figuring out, okay, this is who Sheila is, this is what she stands for, and this is what she's looking for in a partner. And and there were negotiables and non-negotiables. So I remember, I think part of my, was it negotiables or non-negotiables? I'm trying to remember. There was the part of emotionally stable. And at that point, what I really meant was, I'm not ready to I don't want to deal with any emotional baggage from anyone. I just want someone to drop who's whole, who's 110% okay, who doesn't have any problems, who, I had this whole idea in my mind. And I'm not saying that you're emotionally unstable, but God said you're not ready. So I actually came up with a list, and it was there. It featured emotionally stable, and what I just meant was completely mentally whole. And the thing is, I didn't even realize that I would, or he would, at some point maybe go through a challenge, and maybe I'd have considered that as emotionally unstable at the time. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That the two considerations. I'll talk about, okay, there's mental wellness. So in like 2019, I got diagnosed with obsessive compulsive disorder, and unfortunately OCD has a very bad. OCD is not what maybe the movies or media points it out to be. It's actually, I think, listed as the 10th most debilitating health condition, I think, in the world. I think it's, yeah. So I feel like I have to give context on what OCD is, and so it's say that roughly neurotypical or let's quote unquote normal person has about 30 to 60,000 thoughts in a day, right? But you don't even notice the 60,000 thoughts because your brain only latches or holds on to what you deem important. So most of the thoughts but a person who's obsessive compulsive is their brain latches to sometimes each and every thought and treats each thought as fact, and so that person, and that induces like really high anxiety, that person, now you end up being in a loop because the thought is not reality. You just get looped. So you're trying to, it's like you're trying to undo or trying to do something in your mind, which it's called a compulsion, where you're trying to sort of address that thought. And that's why I can give a good example with the people, the most common let's say OCD theme that we normally see in movie and media is someone who cleans a lot. So the thing is where it's misrepresented is because a person who cleans a lot is not cleaning with the intention of being tidy. That person is cleaning. It's like the fear that you get when you're being chased by a lion, like when you think you're about to die. That's a fear that person has when they're cleaning. But the challenge is because the issue is not the anxiety, it's a relation with the thoughts. That person will never meet OCD's standard. So they'll keep on cleaning and they can't stop. And even someone who's like cleaning or washing their hands, it gets so bad that they start washing their hands with bleach. Their hands start bleeding and they still continue. So they can't stop. So like it's not one of those things that, oh, I'm a neat freak, like I just love. No, it's not driven by the same objective. For someone who has OCD, they're doing it, they're cleaning hoping to get relief, but they can't get relief. Not with that cleaning, because you're just gonna be stuck in the loop. So what happens is every time you do whatever you're obsessive, or whatever you're obsessing over, with the hope that it eases your anxiety, you're hoping it doesn't. It reinforces in your brain that, oh, this thing is dangerous. So now you keep on. So every time you come to somewhere like that's dirty, for example, it induces think about like people like get panic attacks because of germs. Like surely that's not the same as what we deem out OCD, for example, to be. But then of course, when I got diagnosed in 2019, I was like, what? Like what? I've seen movies and stuff. I don't. So the thing is, again, there are many other manifestations of how it manifests. It's not only the cleanliness. So I was like, I'm not clean. Like I don't obsess over cleanliness. Like yeah, it doesn't necessarily manifest. Like there are many themes it can latch onto, and some of them is someone who has, like, for example, harm themes is. Which is again a very weird thing the OCD works. Someone who has a harm theme or a fear of harming themselves, when there's a knife there, they will not touch it. They'll sit as far as possible from the knife, because they fear that if they hold the knife, they're going to stab themselves, or they're going to, which is, they call it, I think, ego dystonic, meaning it's the reason why it's driving that fear because it's opposite to what you want to do. Yeah. So anyway, going through all this to say, when I got the diagnosis, I don't like talking about it because I hate being a victim. Absolutely, and I don't think like it's. I want to be labeled as this is who I am as Sydney, and the only reason I actually even talking about now is because maybe it will help someone who's going through a similar experience. But I feel like we're in a point in the world where even people with no diagnosis are using it as labels to get pity or to be treated specially. One thing about me, even if I'm suffering, I'm like on my knees, I do not want you to treat me on the basis of, just treat me normally. Like, I go days, sometimes I have, and the thing is, there are days when I have it really, really bad, and I won't say it to Sheila, for example. There are days I'll be like, oh yeah, today I had a tough day. The days I won't say it, many of the times I won't say it, because I don't want to give it more power. Like, yeah, so I feel like this is just one of those things this is my cross to bear. The same way another person, and I'm not saying that they're the same, but another person might have diabetes, or another person might have this, and that's their challenge to carry, and they have to still find success in life, even with those challenges. So back to your question, we're at a point where, and then to make it worse with social media, every tiny thing becomes like life in general is absolutely brutally difficult, and like I can't be, and we use it as an excuse. For example, oh, this thing doesn't serve my mental health or my mental wellness, so I can't be in this relationship. And fair enough, that may be a valid reason, but I'm always curious, what's that situation I'm talking about that doesn't serve your mental health? Is it just a typical challenge that every single person goes through in marriages or relationships? And I'm not talking about the extremities like abuse or infidelity. I'm talking about just, you might be going through just a challenge that even people who are mentally healthy go through, and you just need to talk to someone and be like, oh yeah, I go through that as well. So not everything or every challenge necessarily results in it may be mentally stressful, but I don't think that warrants a diagnosis. And so it doesn't warrant, like, even if you're diagnosed, I guess I can see it because I believe I've gone through a number of challenges. You still can't have pity on yourself. I don't think, if you're really gonna get out of it and recover, you still can't have pity on yourself.
So of course, when we started the relationship, I met someone who was okay. Not that he's not okay. I really choice of words here, but I met someone who was happy, full of life. I think you are like the life of the party when I met you. You are, when you're around the right people,
Around
you
the
are
people
just,
I know.
yeah. Then suddenly I start seeing Sydney anxious, and I knew, like, the place where he was working at the time was an extremely fast-paced work environment. So I just knew, okay, maybe he's working too hard because he had long hours. He was doing early mornings, long hours. So I just knew, okay, it's probably work. Maybe when work slows down, he'll be okay. And I just noticed that it was just recurring and it was just getting worse. And at that point, of course, I was a bit scared. I was nervous because I was just like, okay, God, I was very clear. I don't want any emotional instability in this relationship. If this is a person I'll marry, I don't see how like I didn't see how this was going to work. But at the time, it was very easy to extend grace because I know Sydney, like I knew Sydney. So as much as it was scary, I was also very determined to help him find the right kind of help. So at the time, I think we really went around to therapists in Nairobi. When you were researching on resources, I was there also trying to figure out. And sadly, around the same time, he was leaving for school. He was going to UK for school. So it was even getting worse because I was just like, okay, now we're just going to graduate into a long distance relationship with this whole thing that is unknown to us. What's going to happen? So it was long distance relationship and OCD. And it was actually before your OCD diagnosis. By the
Yeah.
time he left, I don't even remember what the therapist told you, but
They kept
I-
crediting grief, and
yes,
I was like, okay, I'm not a therapist, but
yeah,
I don't think this is that.
yeah. So I remember I prayed a lot, and I did the most I could at the time, which was, if he's researching on something, I immerse myself in it and I try to understand, and I'd reassure him that he'll be fine. And shortly after you got to school,
Which turned to be a compulsion.
yeah, what I was doing was actually detrimental to OCD, reassuring him that he's okay, he'll be fine, whatever he's going through will pass, was actually the wrong approach. Because when he went to school, he found a proper OCD therapist who was based in the US. She was based in the US, and she had a few sessions with him. And I remember she was very key in helping me understand what was going on, helping me kind of get a glimpse of what was going on in his mind. She asked to have a session with me, and we spoke, and she was just like, okay, so you realize that OCD is, I think she said it's lifelong. So it's just managed like the same way you'd manage any disease that you're told is lifelong, you just manage it. And she told me, I want you to stop reassuring him. Because the only way for Sydney to beat OCD is for him to sit in his feelings. So she helped me navigate, and she gave me the tools to work around it. She just told me, you guys will live a normal life, and I want you to continue as usual. If he tells you he's having maybe an OCD episode, don't disturb yourself trying to find out so much about what's going on through his mind, because you'll be tempted to reassure him, and when you reassure him, you make it bigger than it is. So I think she just helped me normalize the whole situation. And she was just like, if you ever feel like maybe you're having a difficult time, or if your relationship is getting rocky because of this, you can always reach out to me. So I think she was a very big asset in keeping us together, because if I had any questions, I'd ask her. She gave me resources. I was able to read about it. I was able to understand. And I think right now, if you ask me, I think I know so much about OCD. I even had to talk to my family about it. And I think that really helped. So I think there was a time we were going to see a therapist with Sydney. And that evening, I just decided to sit my parents down. My parents are very open minded. And I explained to them what was going on. African parents, it's very hard to get through to African parents, but my parents were very open in trying to understand what OCD is, what it means. My dad, I think, even reached out to Sydney to find out, okay, can you send more resources so that I understand? And doing that also gave me confidence in navigating a relationship. So I think when you decide to bear the cross by yourself, it gets hard, it's difficult. But when you share it out, it becomes easier. Even your family helps you see that, this is a small thing, we'll get through it. And that's what my dad always says, it's a small thing. My son is strong, we'll get through. So I think it gave me confidence. I even shared it with my sisters, and I think sharing helped me. It was part of me navigating the relationship. So by the time we were even getting to marriage or talking about marriage, it wasn't a big thing that I'm unveiling to my family. And I think it's important to it's something that's really important to maybe seek guidance on or pray over and have other people even pray over it. And yeah, I'd say 2019 was difficult because our relationship suffered a little because we were groping in the dark. We really didn't know what was happening. But the moment he met the therapist who gave him the diagnosis, we got resources, and I was able to share. It really helped me navigate our relationship better. Yeah.
Which was, it's at heart, I'm an African man, so sitting through some certain statements is still me. I just want to feel better, man. I don't understand what you're like. It's this. It's like now is not the time for you to be deep. Now I just want to find a solution. But that's what she was right. She was right. It's a good question. It's a tough question. One, because like I said, I don't like the label that is associated with it. Like someone who is diabetic, that's not usually their first introduction. For example, like, oh, my name is Sydney and I'm a diabetic. I'm a diabetic. Like, it's never it's never like their character. Mental health has become a character for one reason or the other, and I don't agree with it. In fact, if me saying my story did not serve any purpose, like if it wasn't going to help someone, I'd rather just not even say. Like, I wouldn't even talk about it. It's just a chance that maybe someone may be like, the hell that I've gone through, maybe I might say something and someone may be like, what, maybe I'm going through this, and they might do more research and come to understand it. But I think the solution is, I feel like we, as a generation, I don't know if it's us or the generation that follows, and one of my biggest fears is raising weak children. And I know that's weak in terms of just like everything now
low adversity quotient.
Yeah, like everything now everyone wants to be recognized. I don't know if that makes sense. Like if someone goes through a particular situation or experience in life, even though it's tough, they want that experience recognized. Like they want, like I always say that hopefully, if maybe my mind might change with more information as we grow older, but at this point in time now, if I'm to have a child, I'm going to tell my child, baby, look, you're special to me. The moment you leave that door, you're just like every other child. People, that's how people are going to view you. Like you're just every other child. There's no experience that you're not supposed to go through. There's no challenge that you're not supposed to go through. I'll treat you specially because you are my child. But the moment you leave that door, I can't raise you to think that when you leave that door, harm is not gonna come your way, So I think with that mentality, because I'm sure we've seen a lot of these posts, and even in relationships actually, like I don't know that it's because ladies are more expressive online than guys, but I normally see it in most of let's say the female followers on my feed. It's the whole, I don't want struggle, I want just soft life.
And me, I want soft life.
But life doesn't work. Life doesn't work that. It depends. What are we defining as struggle? If you're saying you don't want the extremities, no one should be treated, no one should be abused, no one should be like emotionally, whatever type form of abuse, or no one should be like mishandled, all those things. But then are we going to sleep hungry some days. Yeah, that is a possibility. That's definitely a possibility in life. We're definitely going to sleep hungry sometimes. We're going to fall sick. We're going to go broke. We're going to walk. We're going to sell our car. Like, those are all possibilities. I think the moment you live life thinking that, even this is a very unpopular opinion, I live every day, and this is just talking about this is now particular to relationships. I think one of my the mindset I adopt is that I'm not above anything happening to me. Even when I hear stories of like infidelity, for example, I live every day with the intention of I'm never going to cheat. That's my intention, by the way. That's not a reality. So when I hear other people's stories, it's not like I don't think like, hey, that can't be me. No, like I'm aware, and I guess that's why I need to be hyper vigilant. Like, I'm aware that not everyone who cheats, for example, sets out to, like, they don't wake up in the morning and not everyone is like, Leo, today I have to cheat a good one. That's not everyone's, that's not the reality. There are people who wake up with perfectly good intentions and things just happen. So I think also, yeah, just the mindset of like, you're not above anything happening to you. Like, things, the absolute best can happen to you and the absolute worst can happen to you. And that cuts across every single person.
We definitely do not advocate for people staying in abusive relationships, toxic relationships, and sometimes you don't even realize that you're in an abusive relationship. Say you might be in an emotionally abusive relationship, but we really don't advocate for that. But I think community plays a big part. I credit a lot of who I am to the community I've had around me. Even the time when I got into this relationship, I credit a lot of who I was at that time to the community I had around me. And as I think Sydney said this earlier, the discussions that were being had, like, it was very easy to just openly share, and people are like, oh, that's normal, this happens. Like, currently, it's a blessing and a curse that we have social media, because we are exposed to so much out there. And as he said, our adversity quotient has really gone down over time. And I'm not saying that now you have to be with someone who's like, you don't have to glorify, we're not glorifying struggling, but resilience can be as simple as meeting someone and maybe seeing that, okay, maybe this person might not have all the money in the world, but do our values align? Because I don't know, resilience, there can be you can have very little resilience to maybe poverty, maybe to, I'm not saying be with someone who's poor, but all I'm just saying is we miss out on good people, good experiences, we miss out on so many good things because we write people off very fast. I can give an example. When I met Sydney, I think you were working at an agency. I didn't even understand what he was doing. But my talking stage at the time had a better, quote unquote, better, was in a better profession. He was in the medical field. It would have been very easy for me to say, this person will be very successful and this one won't amount to much. And I'd have stuck to that route, but I don't know if that's what God wanted for me. And I'd have missed out on such an amazing person if that's what I would have decided to pursue at the time. So I say community matters, because the community I had around me also helped me see Sydney for who he was. Number 2, prayer and communicating with God. At that time, I remember the other thing that I did was I really prayed to God, and I think he helped me really understand what is important and what's not. So that's how I was able to sit down and I had to be truthful with myself when I came up with my list, where I said these are my values, and these are the values that I look forward to in a person. And the typical maybe tall, dark and handsome, I don't know what appeals to women nowadays, but I had to also think about what's important and what's not.
No, TDH.
Are you dark? You're very handsome. You're very handsome. But I had to really pray to God, and I am grateful that I had someone, an older lady, coincidentally she was called Sheila, who walked me through that process. Because when I was going through the previous breakup, there was a lady who was working where I was at the time, and she called me. Someone just told me, go talk to Sheila. She's experienced in relationships, and she's the one who told me, I want you to sit down and do a proper list, like list your negotiables, non-negotiables, values and all that. And I had to pray to God. And every single time I met someone who I knew our values didn't align, like maybe would be appealing to the masses, but our values didn't align, I knew that that was not meant for me. And even when I continued pursuing that anyway, it's like God would just make me feel so uncomfortable about the whole situation. So it helped having someone older than me who I could talk to, look up to. And my siblings also helped. My sister was in a long-term relationship as well, and it was easy to look up to their relationship and learn a lot from their relationship experience. So I think we need to be truthful with ourselves and with God. The other thing we need to be wary of is also group mentality. I don't know if it's herd mentality, group mentality. Sometimes we get into relationships because our friends think that's the right thing for you. You also need to learn how to be an individual. So work on yourself, and imagine you're the only person you can be the biggest liar to yourself, and you're the one person who can only be truthful to yourself. And when something feels uncomfortable, you will know. When something feels right, you will know. But God gives the wisdom for you to discern. And at the point when I had to walk out of my talking stage, I knew, and I think God gave me the discernment of what's right and what doesn't feel right and what feels right. And sometimes also look at just see or observe situations where you're yourself. I don't know how to phrase this point, but where you thrive best in, or where you thrive most in. And if you find that you have to just tweak like if I had to change the Sheila I was to fit the relationship I was in, I don't think that's the right kind of relationship. But yeah, I think for you to build resilience, you really have to do a lot of work on yourself. You really need to know yourself. And for you to know yourself, you need to pray to God. You need to know what God says about you, and to know what's important, the values that you uphold, and have someone older than you who you can always confide in and look up to. I think that's key in building resilience and possibly getting into a healthy relationship. Yeah.
I'll only add just one thing. I think when you're praying, you need to be very specific with what you're praying for. But the moment you say, I think I put in the moment you say amen, you have to be okay with it going either way. That's the only way because you will hear God's voice, or because God works in sometimes you have to be attentive to see God move or work. I always find it interesting that I think it was Elijah that God whispered. God didn't create a whole scenario or something. He whispered, and it means Elijah had to be very attentive. And the reason I say that is because sometimes when you're praying for a partner or praying for, and this I think also applies to other aspects of life. You somewhat, most of the time when you're praying, we're forcing God to answer our prayer the way we want it answered. So you're like, God, I would love this. You have this person in mind. And so in the moment you say amen, you're just looking for the same person you've been having amen. So maybe God has been sending like a myriad of like signs, but you will never see it because you focused on this is the sign I want,
Or it will just be that friend right under your nose.
Yeah. You have to, I think the moment you say amen, you have to be okay with that prayer being answered in whichever way God, even if it means it will be answered in a way you don't like. But one thing I always bank on is that God knows whatever God decides is the best decision for me. Like I think about it like He's looked at all the various scenarios, and whatever has happened, this is what He was like, this is the best case available for Sydney. Like even more so in the challenging times. Actually, my prayer throughout this, like my mental health challenges, any other challenge in life, has always been just, God, please don't let me miss out on the lesson. Like, let me not suffer just to suffer. Like, if I'm supposed to learn something, okay, don't let my suffering get in the way of that lesson. So let me just learn whatever I want, so that when this is all over, I can be like, oh yeah, I see why I went through that. I'm also aware that maybe that lesson might not even come in this life, but yeah. So I guess you just have to submit fully. Otherwise, you will more often than not do what seems good to you, or choose people based on what seems right to you, and you end up missing out on really amazing people just because you had a very rigid criteria. Of course, you have to weigh out like the principles, like these are the principles I'm looking for. But sometimes some of those things we hold on to and we deem non-negotiable are not really non-negotiable. Like it has no impact whatsoever in making a marriage or relationship successful. Like, it's not one of the core principles. So I guess we pray for the discernment to know which is which. But like I said, the moment you say amen, you have to be okay with your prayer, the answer to your prayer going in the opposite direction.